for VARs, some components of traditional marketing have a tendency to maximize outcomes extremely rapidly because so many of you are so bad at this. So getting super clear on positioning and niche, getting very clear on what you stand for. Is there values alignment? Making sure that when you're thinking marketing, you're actually translating that into customer experience. What do they think about what you said, what you're doing, what you're deploying? Specialization is not about specializing in the platform that you sell. It's about specializing in the customers that you're best at providing value for. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Marketing Blender Show. I'm Dacia.
And I'm Daisy.
Now, today we are talking about what VARs, software VARs, should know about effective marketing. So this is a super niche topic because we have a lot of experience supporting value-added resellers. And there is a very specific approach to marketing that a lot of them get wrong. They leave money on the table, they leave opportunity on the table, and they churn in massive frustration. I think the one thing that I want to note really quickly before we dive into is this is heavy competition. We see, depending on what area, we see big spends. We see a lot of digital competition. We hear a lot of noise in this environment. And so getting really clear about what marketing can and should do in this environment, I think is important. So I love this because this is kind of one of our specialties that we've had for a long time. And I'm excited to actually really speak to this market independently.
And I'm glad that you brought up this as a potential topic for us to talk about because we did an episode about what if you sell through channel partners and distributors and resellers. So this is a look at the other side because, there are things that can be done well on both sides that really help everyone win. Yeah. So obviously value-added resellers exist because business problems are complicated and technology is great, but the technology providers that you work with are providing the platform. You're the one providing the solution. You're taking it and making it effective for your customers. That's the whole reason that you exist. And I know there's a sense that the middleman is somehow not always adding value. So sometimes you're in a position where you have to really prove yourself, and that all comes down to marketing. So when you think about the actual model that you are working in as a business, who is depending on who in this? Is it the platform provider that's depending on you, or are you depending on the platform provider? Now, obviously, if there were no platforms at all, you would have nothing to sell. But that doesn't mean that you have to sell just one product or just one technology stack. You do probably have options on who you choose to partner with. And you are the boots on the ground actually selling that product and making your partner successful. So you have some say in how this relationship should work and how marketing should help benefit both of you. So when you're thinking about creating a win-win-win, which means a win for your customers, a win for you, and a win for your technology providers, obviously the customer comes first. So is the product or the suite of products that you're selling doing the best job possible to solve problems for your customers? If it's not, then obviously that's not the thing that you should be selling because you can't do that in good faith. Second one is, are the suite of products that you're providing helping you win in terms of revenue, growth, and profitability? Because it has to be something that's good for your business as well in order to be healthy. And of course, the third thing is, are you working with providers who match your core values? Because relationships where that is not the case tend to go bad, and there can be a lot of struggle and sometimes a lack of transparency between partners when that's the case. And are you the right fit to bring success to their organization? So if your sales team is not equipped or interested in selling their products, you're just adding to their list of resellers that they have to manage, and you're not bringing value to them. So it's a win-win-win. And obviously, if you have the opportunity to work with a provider where there's a chance for you to build additional recurring revenue that's not necessarily dependent on their services, but on additional things that you can provide, that's usually a good fit. So when you think about what value a reseller is adding, what are some of the things that you see for ways that resellers actually do add value?
Oh, great question. So I just want to highlight so much of what you just said, that basically, I'm going to summarize. You're saying, don't let the tail wag the dog. Get rooted in your positioning, your excellence, your customer base, and your own individual success. Too often we do see like, oh, I'm going to be an Acumatica provider. I'm going to be this, or I'm going to be that. And then it eclipses all of the things that this organization can and should actually do. So I love that. So speaking of the value that they can and do provide, I've seen you deploy this where there's a center of excellence mindset, and sometimes formally and sometimes more just implied around where are we really amazing and what do we do? Like I oftentimes find that VARs take for granted that they have a secret sauce in how they bring consulting to the table, or how they manage clients, or how they explain things, or, how they organize what platform or what tech stack for their, for their clients. And it's that whole idea, everywhere you go, there you are. And so they don't really do a deep dive into their specialization because they don't really understand how other people do it. So the center of excellence idea of like developing their own unique best practices and systems. And I personally, especially when it comes to consulting and that side of a VAR, I love a choreographed experience so that it's replicatable across customers, because that drives referrals, and then on top of it drives sales because you're getting clearer and clearer. And I love the virtuous cycle of we have best practices, and then we have a system for deploying them, and then we have a system for explaining them operationally, and then customers can explain them. And so I really see this, continuous improvement opportunity that is really good for winning deals. It's really good for getting referrals, and it's really good for creating an amazing position. So at the risk of jumping ahead to niche down, but I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Sure. I would add to that, one of the most successful strategies I've seen among VARs is they do need to have their own in-house development team. Not to compete with the platform provider, but because they can be much more agile and they can be responsive to customer requests.
Yeah.
So customers can be asking a platform provider for years for something simple like, I need to be able to pull a report in a different way. And they don't get anywhere. But they can go to the value-added reseller and say, hey, I need this.
Yeah.
And if the value-added reseller hears that from enough customers, they can put that together in a few months, roll it out, make their customers happy, make their customers sticky, and then, continue to look at what do we need to integrate with, what are the APIs that we need to build. It doesn't have to be a huge lift to make customers really happy if you're just focusing on the little things that they're asking for.
It's so true. And it goes back to me for that win-win-win that you were talking about, because this can go in two different ways. You can lead with a position where you are the go-to resource for customization. You can also go in the opposite, where you're the organization that identifies really common misses or gaps. And then it's this repeatable deployment, because now you have kind of a stack of pre-built components where you've got your own off the shelf that you can plug in, and then you can use it to position and differentiate as well. And so, but oftentimes I see people trying to be both, and it can be a little difficult because it's operationally different depending on what you lead with and where the real value is coming from for you and for your customer.
So next we have to talk about the elephant in the room for VARs, which is who gets the leads. Because this is a point of contention in almost every reseller engagement that I've been a part of.
Oh, yeah.
So you have your platform provider. Now, if they're good at what they're doing, they're commanding their market position, they're driving demand, they're going to have some leads coming in. And of course, they get to decide how those are distributed. One of the things that's a real red flag is if that technology or platform provider has their own in-house sales team and implementation team, you have to expect that they're going to take all the best leads for themselves, and they're not going to be distributing those to their partners. So, we actually seen this recently with a client where they are a value-added reseller, and the platform that they sell has built their entire in-house sales team, and that VAR is no longer allowed to use the name of the software that they implement. Like, they literally cannot go into the market and say, we are XYZ implementers or, system builders or consultants.
Yep.
They're not allowed to use the name of the software that they are trying to resell.
Yep.
I've also seen situations where there's been like a joint lead effort, but the reseller has no visibility into the leads coming in, how they're being tracked. Are they getting the ones that they were told that they would get? That's not a good situation to be in. So if there is a situation where leads are being distributed, you need to have clear agreements around how that's happening. You have full visibility into the system by which that's being done. And you need to really look at protecting yourself if it looks like your platform provider is starting to bring that in-house.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up because it's not a comfortable thing to talk about. But we do see a lot of VARs stick their head. We have also worked with a client where their primary product got sunsetted overnight, and they were growing so big, they had become this position for this one product, but without a balance across all of the things. Holy cow. I mean, it was a very scary 18 months for this company trying to move 80% of their business off this platform that was getting sunsetted because that technology provider was moving to a business model that was completely self-contained, no more VARs at all. And also not being strategic and thinking about product lifecycle of your providers, like paying attention to the broader market, like not getting so nearsighted. I mean, you should be thinking like, do you see product plans? Like, what do you see being rolled out to support these? And where do you see this? Because this is very common. I mean, strategic thinking. Every technology provider is at least going to have an internal conversation on risk management. Is it better to stay with partners? Do we need to take something in-house? Do we need to develop? Like, they're always going to be thinking like that. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but if they're having those conversations, you should too. And you should have the exact same thinking so that you are protecting and building resilience into your strategic planning and not just being a victim of the decisions that they make on your behalf.
Yes, I would say VARs need to think about their supply chain.
Yes.
Because it's that all your eggs in one basket. This is the only thing we do. Well, it's the only thing that we resell. That's okay. Well, that's a decision.
Yeah.
And there are consequences because you don't have control over the product that you're selling.
Yeah.
Ever.
No.
You can have some influence, but you don't have control.
No. And I'm real quick, the other thing that I want to talk about, to flip the paradigm is there's an 80-20 principles, because we started out with who gets the leads. Well, for a technology provider, 80% of their business comes from 20% of their VARs. You need to be the 20% because guess who you think they give the juiciest, best, most critically important leads to? Their best guys. And they do stack rank. Partners and really great tech companies, are thinking and organizing that and trying to find out, who are the untapped opportunities that we can bump up into our top tier. So even if they don't have formal tiered programs, there is always
they have a favorite
an
child.
assumption. That's exactly right.
They do.
Exactly.
All right. Speaking of not leaving money on the table, marketing development funds or MDFs are very common in VAR partnerships. But I am shocked by how often the VARs actually don't use this money. And so they're just leaving it on the table. And there are two reasons for that. Number one is they don't have a plan for it. And number two is that they're usually understaffed in marketing. So there's nobody who has the bandwidth to take the time to say, we've got $20,000 here. We should do something with it. But I just don't have time to dig into that and figure it out and make the decisions. And that is a tragedy. And one of the first things that I do with a VAR is like, where's the free money? Where's the matching funds? Where's the marketing development funds? Let me build the strategy for how we use that.
Yes.
And obviously, you have some parameters around that in terms of what you're allowed to use it for, and that's fine. That just means that you can use the MDF funds for things that are joint efforts with your partner, and you save your marketing dollars to do whatever you want with that helps drive direct lead gen or whatever marketing initiatives are most important for you. So there are examples of different ways that MDFs can be used. I pulled a few from AWS because they have a lot of these programs. So a few ways that vendors, VARs are allowed to use those MDF budgets are developing new products and solutions. Ooh, nice. You get to be paid to develop new integrations and new APIs and new product features on that platform. Fantastic. Why not use it for that? Enabling go-to-market activities. So any kind of demand gen that you're doing in partnership with your platform provider, Great. They've got a lot of materials you can already use. So you get to identify, how do we deploy those and how do we do that in a way that's properly co-branded so that you're both getting benefit from that. And then of course, accelerating sales cycle and build pipeline. So if you're spending a lot of money on trade shows and you'd rather not do that, this is where you need to start talking to your partner around how do we go share a booth, and we'll just use our MDF budget for that experience. So one of your biggest, most expensive spends in marketing now becomes a shared cost, and they're actually taking on most of that for you. So lots of ways that you can use your marketing development funds, but please, please, please give them a role and a goal and use those funds.
Yes, have a plan. I mean, this part makes me so furious because this should be so standard and foundational to the business model of a VAR that they should be thinking in their annual planning about what's the money, what's the opportunities, where are we headed, what can help us fund that. I mean, those three components that you outlined are literally the things that strengthen all of your future growth success. Why not use somebody else's money to help you do that better? And all you need is a plan. Like, these are not surprise. It's not like, oh, surprise, there's this little bit of money that's showing up for 30 days and poof, it's gone. No. And then you leave it on the table year after year after year. And this is also, again, how you become a favored child, because they know that all this money is being left on the table. They're like, someone show up. Hello, we've got all these programs for you.
If they're offering those funds, it's because they want you to be successful, because they need you to sell more of their stuff.
Yes.
So, take that for what it is. And if they're not offering marketing development funds, why not ask? Why not go to them and say, hey, if we put up this much money, will you match it? And we'll do this together.
Exactly.
You can do that.
And I would suggest that this is what those companies are saying are the big opportunities in the market. That's why they're going to fund them, is go do these things, because we know these are strategically important.
Exactly.
So, yep.
Speaking of co-branding and all of that, there is an argument to be made that you should be cautious about relying too much on your provider's marketing assets. Because I've seen VARs get really lazy around, they already have a case study for that. They already have a white paper for that. They already have the education material. We don't need to, we'll just grab it and we'll use it as is. No, absolutely not.
Yes.
This is where you should be telling your story, because remember, they're telling their story. Number one ERP, that's great. Leverage their brand position to validate that you're selling, great quality products, but you need to be telling your story and explaining your position in your marketing material. So what makes you stand out? To your point earlier, do they have a choreographed process? What are the steps they put in place to ensure successful implementation? Speaking of ERP, most implementations fail. So There is a lot of opportunity to differentiate there.
Yes.
And then, especially with case studies, you should be telling your story in your case studies, not your partner's story, unless they're funding it or doing something else for you. One thing that I did with a recent client is I took all their case studies, which were written like 4 pages long, editorial style, long story. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Stripped out all of that, and their case studies are now 1 page, and it's introduce the company, outcomes, before and after, testimonials. So what was actually done, what was the result of it, and how did the person feel about it?
Yes.
That's all that their customers care about. They don't care about the long narrative story that's building authority. They don't care about that. They're like, can you fix my problem? And am I going to feel good about doing business with you?
And have you worked with somebody that looks like me, sounds like me, struggles like me, and have you had a successful environment, just like mine? VARs, stop using case studies. Tell stories, because those are about you. Daisy is exactly right. It's not about authority. It's about the fact that you have successfully solved problems and created transformations. Tell stories. And this paradigm shift is so huge. I mean, you're right. It's lazy to only be thinking, the software provider's case studies. But this really starts to clarify what is your specialization? What is your niche? Like back to the top, how are you the best? Because this is one of the most under-leveraged opportunities, is we do not see very many VARs really clearly establish their position, their niche, and their value very well. Are you a CEO of a business-to-business company? Maybe you're a sales leader or a salesperson, or maybe you're in business-to-business marketing. Well, if so, I wrote a book for you, and it's called Corporate Caffeine. Business-to-business marketing is different, but there are certain predictable fundamental principles that will help you unleash your organizational potential and fill your pipeline sustainably. So you can find my book on Audible, on Amazon, on barnesandnoble.com, or any of your favorite retailers. Hope you enjoy it, and I'd love to hear your feedback.
So let's go back to your topic of how do you get the good leads? Mm-hmm. So you got to be the favorite. And this starts with treating your platform provider or your tech provider as a buyer persona. What do they want? What are their goals? How do you align around what their growth looks like? So you have to use your marketing hat, put that on, and think about, how am I going to sell myself to my partner or my provider as the best bet for them to reach their goals?
You know, I worked with a VAR a couple of years ago, and we realized there was so much MDF money, but also marketing was begging for some of their VARs to partner with them, to be on webinars, to be on their social media. And so all we did was reach out to the technology company. Their marketing just showered us with the most amazing stuff. And all this client had to do was show up and say yes and display their specialization. I mean, it was so fun to see them become a favored child. And all they had to do was just raise their hand and be like, I'll take you up on that. I see that. And it was just a single relationship with their marketing department that completely created this halo effect for them to really raise up to that favorite child position.
Absolutely. And remember, as a sales organization, you should be aggressively promoting your best partners. So taking the time to build those marketing funnels specifically around the products they've told you, we need to sell more of these. Yes. You know, if that's in alignment with what's best for your customers, absolutely be the ones who take the initiative and step into that role. And then be that partner who participates with them in roundtables and case studies and all those things where they need someone with your expertise. Always be the first one in line with your hand up for that. I would say the other thing is creating sales assets and enablement tools for your sales team to get better at selling those things. And this sounds like, well, obviously, most VARs do not do this. They're like, here's the product portfolio, go out and sell stuff. Don't assume your sales team knows the goals around what they should be selling more of, unless it's very clearly documented and they have the tools to actually make that happen. Because salespeople are always going to choose what's the easiest way to sell the stuff that gets me the most money. Nothing wrong with that. It's because they're smart and financially savvy and they want to maximize their time. But you have to align what you're pointing your sales team toward with your goals and with your platform partners' goals so that you'll actually all achieve the results that you want. So make sure you're building the assets that make that the easiest thing for them to sell, because it's all laid out for them. You've got the messaging choreography in place. You've got all the pieces that help them move prospects toward a yes. Yep. And then I would say creating repeatable systems across partners. So assuming you're not just selling one product or product suite, which hopefully you're not, because that's dangerous, you need to be building systems that work for all of your partners. So you're not reinventing the wheel. Oh, we market this one this way, we market that one that way, we sell this one this way. It needs to be something that's scalable so that you're capturing those economies of scale with your marketing across the full suite of services. This makes it easier to be the preferred VAR for all of the partners that you work with. In fact, you'll know you're succeeding when your platform providers start kind of stealing some of those ideas and trying to teach it to the rest of the VARs because they suck. So take that as the flattery that it is, but you will remain the number one if you take the lead in creating systems. So it creates less overwhelm for your marketing team, which is probably understaffed, to be able to say, we do this way every time because we know that it works. And we're not bowing to the whims of each individual partner or to the sales team. We're saying this is the system we have in place because it's the most effective.
You know, and I like to joke sometimes that we help people that are too smart for their own good get out of their own way. And I think VARs are such a clear example of this because they love their technology and they have done so much work to figure out how to how to, embed this and how to fix it and how to solve this and how to consult on it. And, they know all the platforms. And so guess what they talk about is platforms. But instead, marketing, talk about the emotions that you mentioned, talk about the outcomes, talk about how it feels. Like you said, I'm sorry, if you sell an ERP, it's an awful experience for customers. Talk about that. Talk about why you know that and how you can be a part of that. And for VARs, some components of traditional marketing have a tendency to maximize outcomes extremely rapidly because so many of you are so bad at this. So getting super clear on positioning and niche, getting very clear on what you stand for. Is there values alignment? Making sure that when you're thinking marketing, you're actually translating that into customer experience. What do they think about what you said, what you're doing, what you're deploying, not what you think you should do? Huge paradigm shift around this for outstanding dramatic transformations. And then we've already mentioned this one, stories, not case studies, and always niche down. Specialization is not about specializing in the platform that you sell. It's about specializing in the customers that you're best at providing value for. So I love this one because it's like just marketing 101 on the table. As long as they just start to get some of this right, it's incredibly transformative for these companies. And we see with the sales teams kind of that, like getting clarity around why we're better, why we're different, why we deserve. So there is really this amazing halo effect, for these sales organizations when you start nailing down some of these principles and then doing it consistently.
I'd say my final note on this is track outcomes. Build your own reporting, build your own dashboards. If your partners are not great at that, take it on. You need to be showing them not just, end result, but you need to be showing them activity. You need to be showing them, these are our plans, these are our efforts, this is what we're doing for you, this is what we're doing with you. So if you want to be that preferred VAR in your ecosystem, you need to take full responsibility across the entire marketing funnel. We have clear data and it's telling the right story to our partners.
Absolutely. So VARs, I get it that you guys are amazing sellers. I get it. Like, that's why you founded this company. That's why you joined this organization. But it is the year 2025, and you have got to stop leaving marketing on the table because the buyer's journeys are way beyond your belly-to-belly relationships. And so start leveraging this ecosystem and system of influence so that you can get back to the business of selling and delivering the things that you absolutely are passionate about. So thank you guys so much. We would love to hear your specific ideas, comments, challenges, skepticism. Reach out to us and tell us what you would like to hear, what you think about what we're saying. We'll see you next week. Onward and upward.